Greetings, everyone. Brad here with Mild-Mannered EDC. Hope you're all doing really well out there. Thanks for swinging by the channel today. So today we're going to take a look at a knife from Kansept Knives, the Lucky Star. There it is, Lucky Star. Interesting knife. Actually came across this knife while I was just sort of, kind of by accident. I was just sort of prowling around on the White Mountain Knives website and came across it, and I was like, ooh, that's an interesting design. I have a tendency to like some of these kind of more dart-like, I don't know, slender, pokey, stabby, if you will, type of knives. For whatever reason, they kind of speak to me. So I was like, So I went over and checked out, as I'm wont to do, on YouTube to see if there were any reviews out there, and there weren't. And so I was like, well, maybe I should just pick it up and see what I think and do a review. So that's where we're at here today. Now, also kind of interesting, this is the first Kansept knife that I have featured on the channel. So first from this brand. In fact, it's the first Kansept knife I've handled in general. So very cool. And so far, a pretty positive impression, actually. So we'll get into that. All right, as I mentioned, we'll do a classic mild-mannered review. So we'll talk a little bit about we'll do some stats and then some size comparisons, and then we'll go ahead and get underway. A note on price, this is about $170. I paid about $150 over on White Mountain. I used a promo code. Actually, I think I used Slicey Dicey's code, so you're welcome, Brian.
You're most welcome.
But yeah, so, anywhere between that $150, $170 range, you can kind of expect to pay for this. So there you go. All right, so let's talk about the specs on this thing. We've got a blade length here of 3.53 inches, so a little bigger than you might have thought, right? Or a little longer, I guess, anyways. You got a blade thickness of 0.12, a handle length when it's all closed up of 4.5 inches, and a handle thickness of 0.44 inches. And that gives you an overall, when it's all opened up here, tip to tail, of 8.53 inches. So it's not a, at least in this direction, it is not a small knife, right? Definitely a slender knife, but not small. All right, and then a very, very lightweight 2.31 ounces, or at least seems lightweight to me. And I like that, actually. I think that's one of the things I think appeal to me sort of in general of this style of knife, is you can generally get a pretty good sized, or at least get some good cutting edge, and not have to bring a lot of weight along with that. So anyways, there you go. All right, let's do a couple size comparisons since we're talking about that. Here is the Lucky Star. The knife it sort of immediately drew my mind to when I was checking it out. Here, the Real Steel Metamorph, and I like the Metamorph a lot. It's one of my favorite front flippers. And speaking of front flippers, how about a boost blade made by We Knives Smoke Mini? So you can see, I mean, definitely, like I said, these two are some of my favorite knives, and I'm actually liking this Lucky Star quite a bit. Not to spoil the review there, but yeah, so you can kind of see how that's working. But for maybe some alternate size comparisons, here it is up against a Rat #1 and a Swiss Army knife. And then how about, just for fun, a Civivi Backlash. So there you go. You get a sense of kind of what we're dealing with here. So, all right. Hope that was helpful.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and get underway with this review. Just quickly, though, for those of you new to the channel, thanks so much for swinging by and checking this out. If you're liking this content, it'd be awesome if you could, give the video a thumbs up. Thumbs down's fair too, but definitely would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. That would be great. And for all of those of you that do already subscribe and support the channel, you know how much it means to me, and I really, really do appreciate it. So, all right, classic mild-mannered review on this Lucky Star from Kansept Knives. We will talk about the blade, then the action, the scales and hardware, and then the ergos and carry. So blade, let's take a look at this. We have an S35VN flat ground blade. And, I was a little unsure with the flat grind because oftentimes there's just not a lot of blade to work with here, right? And so you wonder how sharp they're going to be able to get it. Well, let me assure you, this is very, very sharp and came well ground. In fact, since we're here, let's just go ahead and do a little, yeah, so you can see lots of hair, and yeah, that's gross. I don't know why I even did that. Trust me, it's sharp. It's a sharp blade. So anyways, speaking of grind in general, while we're here, the grind is great. It's really nice on both sides. It's even. The grind termination point here is well ahead of the plunge line, giving you this nice choil, so there's none of that sort of ski rampy approach or anything there. So yeah, overall, they did a really nice job with this grind. Here you have blade holes. They're not opening holes, and we'll talk about that in action, but they are very well chamfered, smoothed off, and just provide a nice sort of aesthetic more than anything else. You do have some jimping, actually, and if you actually look at it from this direction, you've got a considerable amount of jimping. I think it runs at least, maybe 60% of the blade here. So it's a lot of jimping, and it's not insignificant jimping or jimping that's just sort of for show. It's definitely pretty grippy. Not uncomfortable or anything, but definitely it's there, and it definitely has a purpose. So there you go. As I mentioned, everything else very nicely chamfered. You've got a few few markings here. You've got the Kansept logo. Probably my least favorite thing on this knife, or at least on this blade. It just sort of sits there floating out in the middle of nowhere. At least it feels like that to me. And it's not the most descriptive or kind of, I don't know. I'm not huge on the logo just in general. It seems a little obscure. So, whatever. I guess they had to put it somewhere, but there you go. And then you've got the designer. There you go. You can see his, and I know I'm going to butcher his name, and I apologize, Max. So Max Dachuk, I think is how you pronounce that, or at least I'm trying to get close. I don't speak Ukrainian. He's a Ukrainian designer, so there you go. But yeah, that's a cool logo, and I like how it's a little more towards the back. But yeah, there you go. And then you can see Lucky Star. Maybe if I get the lighting right, kind of. Maybe not. Anyway, it says Lucky Star right there, and then the blade steel up here on this side. So overall, very, very nice blade. Probably my favorite part of the blade, though, apart from the grind, which is really, really nice. They did this sort of mirror stonewash finish on it. And, how well that's going to show up on camera, I don't know. But it's really, really nice, And in fact, we see a lot of stonewash, bead blast, satin. I mean, that's pretty common out there. And 150, 170 bucks, that's not an exorbitant price tag. So I actually feel like that took a little bit of an extra step and was a nice little detail that they didn't have to do, but they did. And I think it's cool and appreciated. And it looks pretty darn nice. So there you go. So that's what we've got here with the blade. Let's talk about action. Yeah, it's a front flipper, right?
Yay!
And in fact, while we're talking front flippers, you can see it's got this front flipper tab. And one of the things I was kind of noticing as I kind of had these lined up, some significant similarities in terms of, kind of geometry and how they're, I really think at this point, front flippers are getting to be a bit of a science in the knife design world. They're figuring out sort of what they need to give you appropriate leverage to make it a front flipper that's actually enjoyable to carry and not one that's just fighting you all the time to actually open. So nicely designed sort of flipper tab and geometry to sort of keep your finger on it as it's rolling back so you can kind of keep that steady pressure. So in general, this one's quite well done, unless you are sort of fighting yourself because it's such a narrow knife of keeping your fingers maybe too close to the blade, and then it's hard to open. So you just sort of make sure you're holding it right. But yeah, there you go. Very snappy. Running on cage ceramic ball bearings. Nothing to complain about there. As you can see, pretty darn drop shutty. And in fact, a point on the dropping here. So you see that sort of bounced or landed kind of on my fingernail. That's sort of my preferred approach with these type of knives, where you don't have any kind of ricasso or anything like that, where it can kind of land at the end of the blade. It's going to just do that. Now you have to be careful, because if you have your thumb in the wrong position, right, if you're too far in or too far down even, when this blade comes down, boom, you're going to get bit right on the knuckle. And I have done that more times than I would like to admit here. So, again, I try to really make sure my thumb's in the right spot and just sort of let it bounce down on my knuckle, especially when you have a knife that really has a very nice drop shutty action, as this does. And this has only gotten better and better. Came out of the box very nice, but it's only sort of gotten better and better. So yeah, very, very nice action. Liking that a lot. Speaking of opening and action, as I mentioned, these are not opening holes. I don't know that you could jam your finger in there. You certainly can to kind of pinch it open this way if you wanted to, but for the life of me, I couldn't get it. And certainly the lock bar, or the frame lock rather, is definitely, in the way there. So it's more for aesthetic than anything else. So maybe you like that, maybe you don't. But that's kind of where it is on this particular knife. So there you go. You've got a frame lock, as I mentioned, with a lock bar insert and over travel stop, both very nice additions. Also note here, you don't have any blade exposure in the back when these knives being as narrow as they are, to not feel the blade at all as you're putting your finger in there, I think is really a nice design, because it just makes it more comfortable and less scary to sort of have in your hand and be worried about, slicing your finger open for some strange reason that isn't helpful. So anyways, there you go. Now, I think that's about it. Oh, I guess detent. Let's talk detent. You already saw sort of the action, but it's got a very nice detent that's definitely tuned well for front flipping. You're not, I mean, I don't think I could fling this out at any level, but it's just beautifully sort of, yeah, nice. The action on this is really quite good, very good. And I think they did a fantastic job with that. So it makes this a really enjoyable front flipper, especially for one that's as big as it is, or as long as it is, rather. All right, let's talk scales and hardware. Scales and hardware here. This is a blue anodized titanium scale, blue anodized titanium back spacer, and it's a pretty long one, actually, right? By today's standards in some ways. And then you have this titanium milled clip as well. You've got hardware that's a little interesting. You've got this stainless steel pivot, and then you've got blacked out hardware both back here in the lock bar insert, and then, in the clip. I don't know, from an aesthetic standpoint. At first I was kind of like, should they have blacked out the pivot or just gone all stainless steel? I don't know. I kind of went back and forth. Honestly, it doesn't bother me, I think, at this point. Now, sometimes that can bother me, but in this one, it really didn't. So I think I'm okay with it. But who knows? We'll see if my opinion changes over time. But that's sort of where we are with kind of where the hardware is. Obviously, I mentioned this back spacer. You've got a fit and finish that's quite excellent overall in terms of, as I said, no sharp edges or anything like that. Everything's well chamfered. This backspacer is really fit well in there. No real spaces or gaps or anything. It's just a nice, smooth transitions that you thought, well, anyways. The only sort of fit and finish, foul is a hard word, a harsh word for what it is, I think. But you can see kind of right in here how the clip sort of extends just a little bit over this backspacer screw. And at least I think you can see that. It would have been cool if they'd have taken the time maybe to mill that a little bit so you could have kind of full access there. But I don't know. That feels really nitpicky on some level. And frankly, even if they did that, I'm not sure you could get away with taking that screw out without taking the clip off anyways, or without at least sort of fumbling with it. So, it's probably neither here nor there. But it is something I noticed and just looks a little, I mean, if you stare at your knives as closely as many of us do who are watching knife YouTube, those are the kind of things we notice. So there you go. I didn't mention in action, I apologize. This thing is centered as the Dickens. There is no blade plane or blade rock or anything like that. But I did want to, I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but there you go. All right, so let's talk about ergos and carry. So the ergos on this, right, it's a stick. It's a stick, but it's a stick that feels good in your hand. And in fact, it's got just enough nice little contouring that, it sort of locks in pretty darn well. And this is where, again, that jimping, I think, comes in because of how long it is here on the blade, or how much of it there is. It really gives you an option to not only kind of hold it like this, feeling comfortable. Obviously in a hammer grip, it's fine, but you can really do sort of this choke up, even without that choil, and get really in there for some hard shaving if that's what you want to do. I mean, I don't know if this knife is necessarily designed for that kind of work, but you could do that if you want. But also really gives you the ability to do that pinch grip and get up here and still have your finger on some jimping to steady your finger if you're doing some draw cuts or things like that. So, overall, I think the ergos and sort of the design around the ergos are also done quite well. So I like that a lot. And carry, it's a stick, right? I mean, it's the same reason I like these type of knives in general. They just carry really easily in your pocket. And this isn't a deep carry pocket clip, and it is only right side tip up, but it is a very nice pocket clip. It's got a nice spring to it, really plenty of ramp there. Obviously, it's on smooth titanium, so just in and out of the pocket, it's really great. And even though it's not deep carry, it's only a little bit sticking out, so nothing really to complain about there. But you also notice this is a pretty long pocket clip as they go. You compare it to here. Yeah, you can see you've got another sort of half an inch on this pocket clip, which I think is really nice because it just gives you that extra security in the pocket for these sort of lightweight, slender knives that you don't want kind of popping in and out. So I think that's actually a really nice design, and I think it gives you a little more purchase in your palm, sort of from an ergo standpoint, as we talked about earlier. So again, very nice clip. It's canted off to the side. So they've just done a lot of things really right here in this design. So, where am I overall on this knife? You can probably tell. I like it. I like it a lot. I think for the money, it's a darn compelling knife. I'm pleased with Kansept and sort of what I'm seeing here in my first go at looking at Kansept knives. They're doing a lot of things really well here, and for a knife style that I like quite a bit. It may not be for everybody, but that I like quite a bit. I think it's done quite nicely. Moreover, and I don't normally show this kind of stuff, but I thought the packaging was quite nice. It comes in sort of this tight. It is tight, isn't it? Using all my strength. Geez Louise, eat your spinach or something, Brad. But you get this, you get a little cloth inside, fine, and then it comes with this nice, sort of different style knife case that we're so used to seeing the Velcro and stuff, and this one has this little, like, probably faux leather kind of little strap on there. Maybe it's real leather. I don't know. So yeah, just overall, the experience, right, which is how we kind of judge knives in general. When you purchase them and get them in hand and get that first open in the mailbox and all that kind of stuff, really positive. Like it a lot. Cool knife. Definitely one that's going to be sticking around for me for a while, just because I like these kind of knife profiles, and yeah, we'll go from there. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this review. Thanks so much for checking it out. Most importantly than any of this, as always, stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to one another. All the best.